When I got into chiropractic school, I called that original office and then 2 other offices, and 2 out of those 3 doctors were still working there. And I said, hey, it's Michelle Wozniak. I don't know if you remember me. And of course, the chiropractors, they always remember us, you know, because they invest in our lives, because they care about the quality of life and they want to see us thrive forever, not just for a week.
Well, hello, we're here with Dr. Wozniak with the Health Heroes podcast. I'm excited to get in a lot of cool things to talk about today. And to start off, Dr. Wozniak, so you prefer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Wozniak, just tell me like your story. Like I know you're originally from out in the Midwest, and tell me about like how did you actually get into chiropractic?
Yeah, I mean, I was a chiropractic, poster child, I think, from the beginning. I turned 10 years old and then all of a sudden, headaches, migraines, and not just the here or there type. I mean, it was the never had a day that wasn't a headache day. And then it was just how many migraines am I gonna have this week? So, back then it was, more medical model. It's let's go to the primary care doc. They don't know what to do for it. So then, let's try medications, right? And for a 10-year-old, I mean, I'd already been taking Advil, ibuprofen, Excedrin migraine. And so they said, okay, well, let's take this heavy medication and this drug, and that's not working. Let's do some allergy testing. Let's send her to a therapist. And I mean, all these things. We got an x-ray, we don't see anything. Let's get an MRI of the neck and the brain. We don't see anything. All the way to getting a spinal tap. First spinal tap didn't take, so then I had to do a second spinal tap. Wow. If you could imagine for migraines, putting a 10-year-old through that. But we're talking about the blacking out, passing out in school, throwing up, not getting out of bed for days. So that second spinal tap comes through, doesn't show anything. And they said, you know what, we've tried it all. They did injections in the back of my head, they did injections in my neck. And to do that to a 10-year-old who's continually suffering and then not really thriving at all in school, not thriving in health. And we were kind of at our wits' end. And my dad went to work one day and his coworker said, geez, Terry, you look awful, man. Are you okay? And he's like, I'm so stressed. I'm so worried about my daughter. He was sharing the story and he said, well, why don't you just take her to a chiropractor? And my dad was like, well, aren't they just like neck and back doctors?
Absolutely.
Now remind, this is like 30 something years ago in rural Wisconsin. And so he said, well, you've tried everything else. Clearly they can't find anything. Nothing else is working. So what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't work. What's the best that could happen? She's cured. You should take her to see him. And that's where that story starts and ends. I got my first adjustment and it was like the floodgates opened. I had a lot of upper cervical subluxations, probably just from being twisted up in utero and having all those slips and falls as a kid, and restored that blood flow. And of course that took time. We went through a lot of corrective care process, but I mean, to go through hundreds of thousands of dollars and all these specialists and all these invasive things to have a chiropractor who just took the time, took care of me. And I don't even know where I'd be today if I hadn't done that. I mean, quality of life was almost next to nothing at age 10. And it took 2 years of trying to figure this out with a medical model. So I wasn't even getting relief till I was 12. So after that first adjustment, I mean, life changed. And then I told my parents at 12 years old, I said, I want to be a chiropractor someday.
So you gotta just bypass all of that process of trying to figure out what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
So there's a little silver lining to that.
Yeah, totally. And on my 16th birthday, we were doing, the year that I turned 16, we were taking a road trip back to Wisconsin, as we do every year, because we had moved to Colorado. And I said, hey, on the way, can we stop at the birthplace of chiropractic? I want to go to Palmer in Davenport, Iowa. I want to see where it all started. So we just show up in our minivan and, we just knock on the front door. Hi, can we get like a tour? And they were like, oh, are you going to be a student here? And I said, well, I'm 16, but maybe someday, I know I'm going to be a chiropractor, maybe I'll go here, maybe I won't. Toured the facilities, and I just couldn't wait to grow up to do what we do right now.
Wow. What's so interesting about that, a lot of times in the medical professions, they think chiropractors overtreat or extreme, but you think about how crazy like that 2-year process and how much financial investment and then the injections on a 10-year-old where just straight up chiropractic care is so straightforward and simple, but a lot of times they think like our treatments are extreme. It's kind of crazy how that is.
Yeah, and it's just, we are conditioned to have the quick fix. You know, it's, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go to McDonald's, I order, and 30 seconds later, it's in my mouth, right?
Yep.
I'm in pain, I want an injection, I wanna feel better. Oh, great, I do. They just condition us to think that it's the quick fix, and so anything that's more than one injection, one pill, or one day seems extreme and over-treating. But, you know, I mean, just with being unhealthy, like it took years and years and years for somebody to gain weight, to develop heart disease, to get diabetes. You're not just gonna take Ozempic for a month and it's all gonna go away, you know? And same thing, you've got all these pressures and stressors that have been built up in the body, and one adjustment, you're gonna have a huge, huge relief that day. But if you wanna fix something, remind yourself of the decade that it took to get there. And so, you know, it's just relearning that the right way is not the fast way.
Yeah. I'm curious. Do you know what that chiropractor's still doing, or do you know if he's still in practice, or she?
You know, I don't, and I should probably circle back around. I do remember though that I had called their office, and when I got into chiropractic school, I called that original office and then 2 other offices, and 2 out of those 3 doctors were still working there. And I said, hey, it's Michelle Wozniak. I don't know if you remember me. And of course the chiropractors, they always remember us, you know, because they invest in our lives, because they care about the quality of life and they want to see us thrive forever, not just for a week. And I said, I just want to let you know I got accepted into chiropractic school, and thank you so much for guiding me there. And it was just, you know, one of those great conversations, and they took it to heart, and you just don't forget those moments, you know?
I mean, I remember the first time I had a similar type of experience when I was wrestling in college, and my wrestling coach brought me to a chiropractor. I'm curious, do you ever look back at your experience at that place, and is it similar or different to how you practice when you look at like your first chiropractic experience? And do you ever think about your experience and what it was like and what you thought as a patient when you think about the experience you create for your own patients?
You know, the philosophies are identical. The experience is different just because now we have all the fancy gadgets and, you know, everything is digital, and, you know, we've got all the, you know, shockwave and red light and all the therapies and whatever. But I mean, when I was 10 years old and 12 and, you know, like young and growing up, and I had seen a billion different chiropractors because we moved a lot, you know, and it was just your basic flat table. Welcome. I don't even remember if we signed in. I think it was like a pen on a piece of paper, lay down, get an adjustment, high five, and that was it, you know, because you don't really need all the bells and whistles, you know, even though we do like those things now. But it was it's the same experience then. I do the same experience with the patients. It's, you know, and I think chiropractors are so special in that we ask questions that other doctors don't. You know, because we think of our patients, we long game their health and their longevity. So it's, yes, we want to know what their aches and pains are, headaches, how long it's been going on, if you've had any injuries, what medications you're on. But it's like, what do you do for a living, and what are your activities? And, you know, how is this impacting your quality of life? Or what are you doing that you couldn't do to its fullest extent? Like, we ask those types of questions where like some of our medical counterparts don't.
They're probably questions they've never experienced or thought about, and you see that in patients when they pause and they have to really think how it's impacting them, because people aren't used to that. But that's really how you create a transformational experience too.
Yeah, so I mean, I remember it was those type of questions that I was asked when I was younger as the patient. Those are still the same questions that I ask today. And our number one goal is to address the patient's goals. What is our short-term goal for like pain management, symptoms, get us functioning as quickly as possible? And then what's your long-term goal, patient? Like, what do you want to be doing? And what do we need to be doing to ensure that? You know, I think of chiropractic as a quality of life insurance policy. You know, that's how I kind of approach it. So, and you know, when things work at its core, it doesn't need to change decade after decade after decade, you know?
Yep. One of my mentors, Stephen Franzen, says, chiropractic is an excellent strategy for people that are striving to live a healthy lifestyle. I'm like, it's 100%. It's a great strategy for people that are really trying to live a optimally healthy lifestyle.
And it's always better to stay well once you're well. You know, it's hard to, when you're so unhealthy, when you're so degenerative, when you're so dysfunctional, it takes so much time and energy and money and investment to get to where you are, to where you want to be. And that's with anything. That could be mental health, it could be physical health, it could be chiropractic related, it could be weight, diabetes, whatever it is. But like once you're there, it's just the bare minimum to stay there. But what we see, just what's more common, unfortunately, with the medical model is I'm super unhealthy and then I want to try to get symptom free. So I'm only 25% of the way there. My symptoms go away and then they stop everything and they revert, right? And so when I sit down with patients, I've been in physical therapy 8 times, right? I go for like 12 to 16 weeks and then I feel better and then time goes by and then I go back again, and patients are just used to doing like major chunks of care, and the quality in between, it's just like this huge roller coaster, you know? And it's statistically proven that whatever you try to do, whether it's I want to wake up at 5 a.m. from here on out, or I want to lose that 50 pounds, or I want to, you know, get my mobility back in my hips and joints, you know, whatever it is, 91% of the time, once somebody hits that goal, they will revert back to their original state or worse within 1 year.
Absolutely.
And so when people say, to your question, to your point, it's, you know, like, you know, the philosophy of keeping people well, and, you know, society saying, oh, chiropractors overtreat. We're not over-treating, we're just removing the 91% statistic of everybody reverting back to the same condition or worse. So if we promise patients we're gonna get them there and we get them there, then our job, our next promise is like, let's make sure you stay there, because stats and numbers don't lie.
And maybe when someone says that, they are still thinking of chiropractic as a treatment versus a lifestyle. Because, you know, the longer you're healthy, the healthier you get. The longer you're sick, the sicker you get. And so chiropractic is one of those things that I think the more you put into it and the longer you do it, the more benefit you get. But if you're thinking of it as a short-term treatment, you may think, well, why would someone go their whole life? Well, people come in because they have something that they want to see improved. But it's also about getting them to a new level and keeping them there too. And like you said, you know, the older you get or the worse you get, when you do relapse, it gets harder to get that back. It's like going on a diet and eating great for a year. Okay, I'm healthy now, I can just stop. And then you go back and then you start over.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Wozniak, I know you spent some time down at the Olympic Training Center. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So when I was a student in chiropractic school, the head medical director for the OTC is Dr. William Moreau. What most people don't realize is the medical director for all Olympic Training Centers of America is a chiropractor. How awesome
I
is
didn't
that?
Even realize that?
Yes, it's amazing. Now, the OTC would not allow a chiropractor, just a chiropractor by themselves, to be the medical director. And he said, what do I need to do? Because I understand the benefits of functional and human movement, injury prevention, how to rehab appropriately, how to identify. Nobody can identify overtraining injuries better than chiros and physios. Nobody. And so he said, what do I have to do? Because I know that I am the best suited. And they said, well, you have to be a medical doctor. And he said, great. So he goes to medical school for only that reason. He's like, I don't prescribe drugs, I don't deal with infectious disease, I don't care about any of that. But if anything, I can steer people away from that model. And so he runs the CCSP programs for chiropractor colleges, so Certified Chiropractic Sports Physician. So he would come to our school 4 times a year to run seminars, and I worked in our president's office at the school, and I was kind of just his secretary. Whatever the president needs, that's what I do. And so I always had to pick up Dr. Moreau and his wife from the airport, make sure he was all set up for the seminars, and he said, hey, are you gonna apply for our program at the OTC? And I said, well, Dr. Bill, I would love to. I'm not magna cum laude in school. It's not like I have a 4.2 GPA. I'm a smart cookie, but you know, I wasn't like super brainiac. I wanted to get my hands in the adjustment lab because that's where my passion lies. And I said, I know that 5,000 students apply every single year.
5,000, wow.
5,000 apply every year, and that's from all different disciplines. PT, OT, chiropractic, med school, sports med programs. 5,000 apply per year and 50 get in.
Wow.
50. So I said, as much as I want to apply, I don't know, I'm not sure. And he goes, I know your passion. I know how smart you are. He's like, you are in the front row at every class. And he was like, he's like, so just I'll put in a good word with the big guy. And I was like, aren't you the big guy? And he was like, I may be. So, not that I got a free hall pass or like a shoe-in. I really did have to work for it. But yeah, so I got to do my externship there, which was great. So it was the best 6 months I've ever had. Now, we don't get to put our hands on the athletes. I mean, we're talking Olympians here, okay? Pan Am Games, Paralympians. But we get to sit in on all of the debriefings. So every single day, the board gets together, right, which is the head medical director and then the other medical directors underneath and then the entire treatment team, and they have all different treatment teams, and then the interns get to kind of be in the wings, and they go through every single case every single day, every single athlete, what they're eating, what they're doing for sleep, what they're doing for sports psychology, mental health, like, what their overtraining injuries are going to be, like what treatments they're under, what their training schedules are. And it is such a collaborative effort with the treatment teams over there. And everybody gets together and says, I think it needs to be ultrasound, or I think we need to decrease by 5% in these categories, and, all this kind of stuff. And it's so awesome to see that the chiropractors are leading this, and then all the other medical professionals are leaning on the chiropractors to what are they going to say, and everybody's like, yes, I agree, yes, I agree. It's just fantastic.
That's because the chiros are the only ones that think straight. No pun intended.
Yeah, right.
I'm curious. So, did you ever witness any heated debates from different professions on what they thought people should be doing? Was there ever any arguments that you can remember, or was everyone pretty much in agreement?
Everybody was pretty much in agreement. It was very rare that there was kind of something heated because, again, chiropractors think not in the telescope version that most providers think of. We think way, way outside
Look
big
at the whole
picture
thing.
stuff.
So other things make
Absolutely.
sense to you.
And so, when the debriefings happen for the day for the athletes, it's, you're taking into account all the things. And then when the treatment strategies come out for the day, I mean, it's almost a unanimous thing. Now, the big disagreements or disparages would be maybe the level of intensity or the treatment number for the ultrasound, or if cryotherapy is too much. So it would just be I think the percentages are off a little bit, or I think we need 6 of these therapies versus 4, but it was super, super similar. And it's just amazing to see the athletes thrive and flourish. And a lot of patients, a lot of other doctors say, well, why don't you have a sports medicine practice where you're just seeing all the CrossFitters and all of this and all of that? And I said, all of my time at the OTCs basically taught me that real life regular Joes, regular people like you and I and everybody watching this this video today, we have the same injuries as the athletes, just to a less intense and less frequent degree. We get rotator cuff issues, we get knee problems, we get shin splints, we get neck and back pain. They get those same things. So I took all of my training and all the expertise that I got, and I translate that into my weekend warriors that I treat every day in the practice. I've got patients who are like, how did you learn to evaluate a shoulder like that? I've seen a physiatrist, I've seen a DO, I've gone to physical therapy, multiple different clinics over the years. You've treated me 4 times and my shoulder is 80% better. And I said, it's because Michael Phelps is no different than Bob across the street. We get the same stuff. And so I took all of that and I translated. I've got a family-based, wellness-based practice right here in downtown Denver. And yes, neck and back pain is a part of that. But I just see so far beyond it. And again, it goes back to the type of consult questions. What's your favorite activity? What sports do your kids play? Because you're shagging balls at their practices, So let's just talk about how you want to keep healthy, and let's adjust the joints, and let's adjust the spine, and let's do some therapeutic exercises in the office that you can do at home. And show your wife that, by the way, she's doing the same things that you are, So I really just took all that experience and just translated it into every day.
I had a similar experience. I was an intern for a doctor that took care of the Minnesota Vikings when they had Chris Carter and Randy Moss and these guys, and they would come into the clinic, and I would say, what do you do with Randy? And he's like, same thing I do with Joe. Like, they're the same body parts, and he's like, and they weren't coming in because they were hurt. They're coming in because they were trying to perform at the best levels, because to them, fractions of a second for millions of dollars in contracts and stuff. But it was just the same as anyone else. They're just regular people, or their bodies are the same. Maybe they're a little bit more fit and stuff like that, but the treatment's basically the same.
Yeah.
I'm curious, from your time there, do you have any favorite athlete or athlete that you remember the most from that time?
Man, I wouldn't say favorites. That's like being a parent and having 5 kids. Like, which one's your favorite? Like, they're all our favorites. I would say the thing I enjoyed most is the athletes put in the almost identical amount of time into training and performance, into rest and recovery, and their sports psychology, visualization, and mental health. It's like a third, a third, and a third. Yeah. And I saw that because everybody thinks they like train, they do 2-a-days, they're weightlifting, they're sprinting, they're doing cardio, they're doing sports specific, like training with the coaches, and that's what they do 90% of the time. And then they eat, sleep, and rest, and that's it. And it's so not that way, and people don't realize that. And I go, man, I should be incorporating that into patient care here with our patients too. And so going back to some of our questionnaires, it's so, what are the medications you're on and why? And do you have goals on getting off of those? Like, how, like, we always ask, like, what are your, hobbies and your favorite activities, of course, but then we ask, like, how's your sleep and what are your stress levels like? And what do you do to manage those things? Like, that's all a part of the consultations that we do here. So outside of just making treatment recommendations, right, for their physical bodies and for chiropractic, I'm trying to go, well, what recommendations can I make for sleep and stress management and work-life balance? And because that really brings happiness and health full circle, and the OTC drives that home with every single athlete, and you cannot skip. Like, you can't skip a sports psychology session, you cannot skip a visualization and meditation session, like, for anything, and you will get penalized if you do.
Now, I'm curious if you've had the same experience, because when I started in practice, and I was an athlete once too, but it was go, 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 but as I've got more seasoned, I had to start approaching things the same way as a business owner. So I'm curious for you if you had to ever look back and start taking your own advice in any sense like that. Just not just as a being healthy, but especially as a business owner and entrepreneur. There's a lot of stress. You can work yourself to death, but ultimately you have to take care of yourself as well.
Yeah, I think the best advice that I ever got was, don't be a man on an island by yourself, because that's really how entrepreneurship and business ownership can feel, and it can be. Like, all the success is because of you, and then all the failures are because of you, and the wheel doesn't go unless you are running on it. And so I just created this network of business owner friends. Like, that's how we know each other, like, we were in different, mastermind groups and coaching groups and all this kind of stuff, and building those friendships, because maybe what I struggled with 5 years ago in practice, like, you weren't struggling with that, and I could lean on you for some of that advice. And, other business owners come to me and, how do you handle this? And, givers gain mentality. And so it's, one, just being a part of mastermind groups and like bouncing ideas off of people and sharing your struggles and letting people give you advice and take that advice and sharing. That, I think, is the number one thing that really, really helps. And then I always know that meditating and saying affirmations are good, but then you get busy, and then you're short-staffed, and then you're triaging problems, and you're a firefighter putting out fires all day. So I wasn't doing those things on my own at home. And I said, I needed an accountability partner. Who's better at being an accountability partner than your own team and your staff and your employees? So on Wednesdays, we have mandatory team meditation right here in the office. So we have a big open adjustment room, beautifully designed, very zen. It's kind of our zen zone for our treatment areas. So on Wednesdays, for a half an hour during our lunch, we turn the lights off. We put on a 20-minute guided meditation. We've got yoga mats and pillows and whatever, and we sit there and we breathe and we meditate as a team. That really brings us together. It centers us. It forces me to do do it. I feel like it's more for me, but the team loves it and they look forward to it too. So it really helps us to slow down, to reset. And if anybody has ever meditated before, you know that you don't just lay there and zone out. Like all the things that are bothering you and plaguing you and stressing you comes up, and it's coming up for the team as well. And then all of a sudden, Wednesday afternoons, Thursdays, Fridays, it's, hey doc, so I have this great idea about how we can solve this problem. Or I think this would be really cool if we could start bringing this into the practice or whatever. And so then they start solving problems for you, and then that frees you up and gives you time and freedom and adds to that happiness. So that's another way that I've found some balance there, and learning to say no and learning to let go a little bit.
100%.
I think we want things to run so perfectly because we care about patients so much that we will like choke certain processes in the office and we won't let go and we do everything ourselves because the goal is patient care. Starting to let that go and sharing that with your team to say, you know what? I want to give this gift of responsibility to you for the greater goal of like enhancing the patient experience in the office. And I've been doing this for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, but I'm ready to give you this gift of responsibility if you so choose to accept. And this team loves that. They feel so empowered, and you just get to pass that hat off. And that's been really helpful for me, which has been great.
Yeah, it kind of comes back to that saying, you never go to a restaurant where the chef won't eat his own cooking. And so you have to be congruent with your message as well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in my office at ScolioCare, people come to see me mostly for scoliosis. And the one thing I see a lot of times, unfortunately, is a lot of times people come in when things have gotten really severe. And although we can still do something to help them, I always think, you know, if we could have got them when things were early on and smaller, before they really thought of it as a crisis, the outcome could have been so much potentially better.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, with you and your own practice, where do you see something similar with the patients that you treat?
Yeah, you know, we have a really young patient base because we're right here in the center of downtown Denver in LoHi. It's a very young and hip and up and coming part of town. So we fortunately have a much younger patient base. I would say our demographic is like 19 to 40, but really it's more like 19 to like 32. And so these younger generations are so about like all natural, like healthy, wellness. You know, they just want to get checked because they heard it was cool, the like good thing to do, or they have a little ache and pain, and they will come in sooner rather than, you know, some of those older generations who like just say, oh, you know, doctors are just for like sick and dying people, or oh, you know, put some dirt and like rub some dirt on it, like don't be a Nancy, you know. So we really do have a younger patient-based mindset, but for some of those other patients that we have seen who have let things go awry, I ask them, why did you wait so long? And they said, well, it just started out as like, you know, like a little bit of back pain, and then, you know, I like, thought it would get better, and then like I was taking ibuprofen, and then I just like stopped working out as much, and I always think I'm 1 week away from it like going away, and then 1 week turns into a month, that turns into a year, and I've had this problem for 5 years. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people, a lot of patients. You know, it's, oh, I tripped down the stairs and my back hurts, but we think like 3-4 days it'll be better. And then that just keeps snowballing and snowballing. And two, we're taught to like numb the symptoms. Just do like ice and rest and ibuprofen. And then if that doesn't work, see your medical doctor, and they're gonna give you muscle relaxers. They're gonna give you pharmaceutical prescription grade naproxens and pain meds. And then that turns into oxy. And it's like, how did we get here? You know, like what is going on? There's not commercials on TV and the radio and Instagram for chiropractic and natural health or acupuncture or anything like that. It's drug companies and that kind of stuff. So people just don't think to go in early, and they don't think to come to us, right? And so that's one issue that I see. The other thing that I hear from patients so often is, yeah, I've been seeing my chiropractor, or I've been seeing PT for years and years and years. And my last, you know, PT session was 2 months ago, or my last adjustment at the chiropractor was 3 weeks ago. And I go, oh, so why are you here at our office? You know, you have a chiropractor, you have a physical therapist. Like, why are you here? Why aren't you going there? And that's, well, I'm not getting better. So there's a good thing and a bad thing, right? The good thing is the patient still believes in chiropractic and like fixing things naturally because they came to us, right? They came to me. But the bad thing is like they're not getting better. So I find so often that patients, they're not misdiagnosed, they're underdiagnosed. Patients are underdiagnosed time and time again. I have to imagine you see that in your clinics so much, and it's so disheartening because I go, okay, well, what did they diagnose you with? What did they say your back issue is? Well, they just say like my hips are off. They say like one leg is shorter than the other. Like every time I come in, they're like, oh, your left leg is short. Let me adjust your short left leg. Let me adjust those hips, or you're out of alignment, or you just have bad posture, or your muscles are tight. And so what I'll share with the patient, I said, well, you know, Chris, that's an observation. That's not a diagnosis. There is no medical book on the planet Earth where the diagnosis is you're out of alignment. Right? Yep. Like your diagnosis is you have tense muscles or you have postural strain. That's not a diagnosis, it's an observation. And so I'll say like, do you have any x-rays? No. Why? Oh, I don't know. They just said like,
or from 10 years ago, and they
or they have an x-ray of like the 5 vertebrae in the lower back.
With a zipper on it.
With a zipper on it and a button, right? But it's like, why didn't they do full spine x-rays? Oh, well, because I just have this one spot in my back that hurts. I don't have neck pain, so they only took like this one spot. Oh, have they ever done nerve scans, muscle scans, surface EMG, stress tests? Did they ever do like functional movement tests? Did they do a hands-on exam? Well, I mean, yeah, they put their hands on me and they poked around a little bit. So I am not shy to take x-rays. I will x-ray all day long. I am like Oprah with diagnostic tests and like x-ray. You get an x-ray, you get an x-ray, you get an x-ray. Like, let's pass it out, right? Like, it's Oprah's favorite things. It's Dr. Wozniak's favorite things. Let's run some tests, you know? And that's where you find the problems. And then I'm like, Chris, look at this. Like, we see that like these muscles are weak and atrophied. I see you have scar tissue over here. These muscles are overworked. Now I see full spine x-rays. We've got scoliosis in here. We've got degenerative disc disease. We've got thoracic kyphosis. Yes, you have, your hips are out of alignment because it looks like your left leg is longer. Well, then we did foot scans and we found that you've got weak ankles and you've got instability and then you have a knee buckling problem. We did a scan. You don't have an anatomical leg length discrepancy, you have a functional. Did anybody talk to you about orthotics, a heel lift, rehab? No, because I don't have foot pain, but I have back pain. Yep. So, you know, and then it's interesting too, sometimes we'll have patients come into the office, Doc, do I need to get an x-ray? Do I have to take these tests? And my answer is, well, do you want to know or do you want me to guess? Because we can do orthopedic tests all day long, and it's not that we can't diagnose something without diagnostic tests or imaging, but I'm somebody who like, I want to know, I don't want to guess. And I ask the patient like, what is your reservation about getting this x-ray? Or
misinformation probably.
What's your reservation? Like, why don't you want to do these tests? And you know what that like 9 times out of 10 answer is? I don't want to pay for it. It's expensive. And I'm like, this $105 x-ray is expensive, right? But here's the thing, like, so if I don't have all the information, what if I treated you 6 times, 12 times, 20 times, and you're not really getting better? All that is much more expensive than the one x-ray that we could identify the issue and handle those symptoms faster and get you to wellness faster and get you functioning. And didn't you just tell me that you've seen 4 chiropractors, 5 physical therapists, and you've been going for 5 years? Like when does the buck stop, you know? Like, let's do that. And then, you know, I'll come across these x-rays that are just, they're so surprising to them. They're so surprising to me. And thank God we've got Scoli Care, right? With like, you know, your location that's so close to us. And that brings me to a question for you, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
I've got patients who have young kids and they go, are kids supposed to get x-rayed? And if you see signs of scoliosis or maybe like, you know, a shoulder that's higher, their head is tilted, or like when do we have to go to Children's Hospital to get an x-ray to diagnose this? Would you treat this? You know, like when is the right time? And you being the scoliosis expert, I would love to hear what you have to say.
The whole idea of doing scoliosis screenings that we used to do is to see a sign of scoliosis. And then the gold standard is you would take an x-ray, full spine, to either rule in or rule out scoliosis. So you may see someone that has like a high shoulder or scapular winging, or you may see some humping, so you think there's scoliosis. Then you take the x-ray to determine, do you or do you not have it? And some, there's really like, there's like a radiophobia based off misinformation. Some of the radiation fears come from the idea that every time you get radiation exposure, it just keeps accumulating and accumulating and it never goes away. That'd be like every time you went out and got sun exposure, you retained all of that. Well, you'd just be sunburned all the time. And we actually know radiation in low dose actually has immune benefit to your immune system. It's called a hormesis, things in small doses. So you could, a little vitamin R is good for anyone anyway. And I think we looked at our machine one time, we would have had to do like 150 consecutive x-rays on someone in that day to just get that radiation threshold where it actually became harmful. So that's what you do. You actually get an x-ray and it gets detected. You could go to Children's. We get a lot of patients that come there because in the orthopedic world, they're so restricted in their treatments, and they wait till curves have got between 25 to 40 degrees and before they treat. And we know if we treat them younger, they are starting to rethink some of their philosophies, realizing if we treat them when they're smaller, we can manage them better. But then their whole goal is just to like, let's not let it get bad enough where you have to have surgery. They don't even try to change the curves. They actually think they can't change the curves. Actually, I believe with their treatments they can't. I know they're not successful at it. But like for them, if someone had a 25-degree curve, went to 45 degrees, and you didn't have surgery, they'd say, hey, that was successful. Like to us, that's not successful.
Oh, that's traumatic.
So
that's traumatic.
They do a lot of great things. That's just not what they're great at all the time. We were meeting with a pediatrician yesterday, and she's like, well, we refer to Children's a lot. And I said, yeah, I understand. And here's their treatment. And I said, here's how ours is different. And she goes, where were you 10 years ago when my daughter, because she has scoliosis. And, so... But yeah, you just take an x-ray. There's no harm. There's harm in not taking an x-ray. It's a standard. I know you do some personal injury. There's the guy that used to teach the courses, Art something in San Diego. You know who I'm talking about? Art Croft.
Yep, it's the Whiplash and Traumatology Centers of San Diego.
So he told a story about when he was getting drilled, when he was testifying in court, and they said, you took all these x-rays, and this medical doctor says they're not necessary. And he said, I actually agree. For him, they're not necessary. He just gives prescriptions. He goes, I'm moving the bones around in the spine. I need to see what's going on. He gets a prescription. He gives a pill. So for him, it's probably not needed. But he goes, but for what I do is I'm moving the joints. Like I need to see what's happening. What's also interesting, someone could go to a hospital and they would get blood work and they would take their blood pressure and they would do these things just to check to see if they're normal and no symptoms. But for what we do, they think it's it's too much to take an x-ray just to check, regardless of symptoms.
It's crazy.
But how do you do your work? It's like, it's like going to the car dealership and say, hey, how's my engine doing? And they're like, but you can't look under the hood, you can't plug in your tool. It's like, no, it's like for what you do, it is the tool to understand what to do and what you're dealing with. Like I would never want to go to someone that didn't take to evaluate me for whatever their specialty is.
100%, yeah. Now, is there an age where it would be too young to take an x-ray? I get that question from parents a lot.
Well, we have infants. We've done infants because it depends on, do you have a reason to look? And so, like, do you have a reason or, like, and if you're going to base what you may or may not do with that information, then you need the information. So it depends on what you're doing, I guess. If you're going to potentially do something or not do something based on what could be going on, you should look to see what's going on.
Yeah, one of the weirdest questions I've had, and I've had this multiple times throughout the years, a parent will say, well, because kids are so like loose and flexible and like they're like Gumby or Stretch Armstrong, if you see signs of scoliosis or curvature, like won't they grow out of it? I think that's such a funny question. What's your favorite response to that?
Well, all big curves start as small curves. And infants, 50% of infant cases do outgrow. That's like someone's like a newborn. But you don't outgrow scoliosis because scoliosis is a bony deformity. But sometimes you may have a postural issue that's not actual scoliosis that could change over time. And the bottom line with anything is you got to go to someone that's really skilled like at what you're doing. It's also interesting, you were talking earlier about patients and things like that, and I was thinking, if I was going to do something as a chiropractor, or if I was going to try something for my business, I would talk to someone else that's experiencing that. Hey, what do you think of this? Or I know you tried that. How was that? I would never go to someone that's not doing that and see if it's right for me. But what's interesting, we get patients, and maybe you do too, that they come in and they're looking at doing it, and they want to ask what someone else thinks, but they usually ask someone that doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you don't really go to chiropractic. Do you think chiropractic would be good for me? No, you ask someone that's actually having success with it. Why are you doing this? I see that's really helping you. Like, do you think it could? That's who you ask.
Yeah, rarely, but it happens enough, right? Throughout the decade or so that I've been doing this, patients like, I'm just gonna hold off because I think I'm gonna go get a second opinion. And it's funny, when you're younger in practice, you're like, oh my God, like where are they gonna go? And then as I have gotten more experience, I almost love this challenge, right? Like, I'm gonna go get a second opinion. Oh, so what is it that you want a second opinion about? Is it your diagnosis or like the treatment strategy that we're laying out for you? And they're like, both. And I said, well, what's your concern that we might not be the experts that are best for you? Well, it just seems like a lot of treatment, right? That goes to the misnomer of over-treating. And I said, well, the thing is, like, we know in the world, like, math doesn't lie, like math and science doesn't lie, right? Like, x-rays and diagnostic tests don't lie. So I said, I would absolutely recommend if you want to get a second opinion, but where are you going to go? Right? Is it going to be an orthopedic surgeon? Is it going to be a spine specialist? Is it going to be a medical doctor, a PT? Or is it just really you're looking for another chiropractor who doesn't care as much about you to tell you the truth about what's really going on, to tell you what you need, not what you want. And trust me, I want you to get better faster. I want your insurance to pay for this 100% and have it absolutely free. But just know that I would never treat somebody one more adjustment or visit than their body absolutely needs. And this consult that we're doing and me going over this treatment strategy for you is not for me. It's for you. I'm going to be here regardless, right? I like helping patients, and I want you to be one of those patients. But if you're looking for a second opinion, just ask yourself, is it really just like the time and money investment? And I'm just looking for someone who will do less, but they're doing less of a service to you, and they're gonna give you less quality of life. So just keep that in mind, and that's okay. But if you wanna call me in 6 months to a year or 5 years from now, like, we'll take you back in with open arms. That strategy might be different because if things worsen, which they always do, right? Might be a little bit different. It's always cheaper and easier and faster to handle something now than it is later. Kind of to your statement of big curves always start as small curves. So it's our job as providers and our job as doctors to take any insurance information, copay information, what this person does for a living, how old they are, what you think they want, what you think they can afford. Blind yourself to all of that and go what does this person need, regardless of all of those other factors, and really diagnose and prescribe for the needs. And some people will and some people won't, right? But the ones who will, you've changed their life forever, and then they can help somebody else, hence the referrals. Talk to those success stories. That's amazing.
So if you could give one piece of advice to just people in general that are, maybe they're wondering about chiropractic, or they're just wondering what they could do to improve their health. And if you could give one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh my goodness, to the patient? Wow, I'd say, make decisions about your health from the rocking chair test. And a patient goes, what's the rocking chair test? So here we are in these big, nice chairs, right, guys? So when you are 90-something years old, and God bless that you make it that long, because we should, because, what's the average life expectancy in the U.S.? Is it at 77?
Yeah, I think it's going down.
It's going down.
Yeah.
I think it might be 76 or 77. Don't quote me on that.
Well, you're a woman, so yours is longer than mine. So.
Yeah, it's all that meditation I do on Wednesdays with the team. But the rocking chair test is, you're 90 plus years old and you're sitting in your rocking chair, and you go like, what were my regrets in life? Like, what did I not do, right? Because like you don't remember like those stressful days at work, right? You don't remember like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't take those 2 extra days of vacation because I worked those 2 extra days, right? You don't remember the money you spent, right, on supplements. Like you don't remember that stuff, right? Like you remember like the trips, and you remember the vacations, and you remember like, you know, playing with your kids and watching them grow and being an active parent and like having so much fun and, you know, doing all the sporting events and then having the grandkids and then being able to pick them up and run after them and watch after them, and, you know, the concerts you went to and like all that fun stuff, like feeling good, like feeling strong, looking good your whole life, like having like happiness and longevity. And, you know, the rocking chair test really is like, how many regrets do I have and what are they? Because like time, like you're 90, right? Like you can't go back. So I would say like approach your health for your 90-year-old self and say, from where I'm at now to the day that I die, let me make the rest of my life the best of my life. So you know what, like insurance or not, like go try it all. Like make an appointment everywhere and do it, you know, like maybe twice a year, like push the boundaries. So if you've never been to a chiropractor, like set up a consultation at like a highly reputable, great practice, and then do that with acupuncture, do that with a nutritionist, do that with a naturopath, do that with a, you know, like PT office, like do that with, you know, like a dentist, like do it with everything. And then like it never hurts to get checked. Get your blood work done and have like, you know, a naturopath, a chiropractor who specializes in that, a functional medicine doctor, have them look at that. Don't have your medical doctor look at that, and do those things. And the best thing that can happen is everything is great. You're super healthy, nothing is wrong, or you just need a little tweak to your diet, a little tweak to your supplements, a little tweak to your hydration, a little tweak to your alignment, your nervous system, you know, and then worst case scenarios, they find a bunch of bad stuff. Good thing you did it early, because it's always easier, faster, and cheaper to do that.
Absolutely.
And then stay healthy that way. I think that would be my best advice for all of us, but patients for sure.
You never regret doing something healthy. I've never had a patient go through treatment and regret getting treatment. I've had patients that didn't get treatment, came back years later. I'm like, why did I not take care of this earlier? You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the ultimate question that what I really want to know, because I know you're a huge Packers fan.
Yes.
I mean, who is the Packers GOAT? Is it Favre or is it Rodgers?
Oh, it's Favre. Favre forever, 100% forever and ever. Like, that is our boy, you know, because he bleeds green and gold to this day. I mean, he is the ultimate cheesehead. He's just the ultimate Packer fan. I know you mentioned the Vikings earlier. He did leave us. No, I was never going to get the jersey that was like half cheesehead, you know, half Vikings jersey. You know, it's, you know, when you're at the top of your game, like just retire with the team that you always had, but it was always Favre. He never missed a game. I don't think, if he missed a game, he missed one in his entire career.
Yep.
His dad died.
It's kind of his legacy.
Yes, Brett Favre's dad died the day before, and he played the day after, and it was one of the
historic games.
Yes,
yeah.
Historic games, like best game of his life. Now, Rodgers, you were great when you were.
His dad was a chiropractor.
His dad was a
is maybe
chiropractor, right, which is awesome. But Rodgers, you got a little, you know, caught up in the fame. You got a little caught up in the, you know, celebrity ladies. You got a little caught up in your ego, and we were ready to see you go. I don't think a lot of Packer fans were too sad about it, but I loved the three amigos, you know, like Brett Favre and Reggie White, and you know, they were just Donald Driver. They're all the best, you know. So he left a legacy, and you know, Dr. Chris, like you're doing amazing things with Scully Care and you know, your practices, and you know, I hope that I'm doing amazing things for mine. And you know, it's all about leaving a legacy. You know, it's not about having the biggest practice, the busiest practice, making the most money, being on the cover of Business Digest Colorado, right? It's what legacy do you want to leave for yourself, your family, and your patients? So if I got to ask you a question, right? Like
Sure.
any kind of legacy stuff that, you know, you're building and you want to pass on and leave. And
I mean, for me right now, I get asked why I did Scully Care, and I remember a few years ago when I was working with it's like a practice consultant, and they had us do exercise like close your eyes, and it's like, you know, what's the one thing that you think you can do better than anyone? And I'm like, well, I think I can do scoliosis pretty good, but I'm like, I'm not doing that. And scoliosis is hard. I mean, the patients are challenging, And I was like, there's no way I could ever see myself at that point doing that all day, because it was just, you're just dealing with people that are really suffering, and so it was difficult cases. But I got to the point, I said, maybe I just need to get better at this. And so I stopped doing all the other chiropractic work, and I just did scoliosis, and I started getting better. And it got easier, but I just had people that were coming to me that I had no one to send them. And I just, like, my heart went out to them. And I just thought, this is something I can really make a difference in, and I can really help people where they are just searching for help. And so for me, and like, you start in your business in the beginning, you're just grinding and you pray that you make it and you keep your lights on. But I got to the point where, like, hey, everything is going good. Like, what do I want to do when it's all said and done? And I just knew this is something that I felt like I could really help people that I didn't have at a higher level than I could in my just doing my regular chiropractic practice. So that's like for me. And now that I have a little girl, like, if she stands crooked, I'm like, she's give me heart palpitations. And I think about her now when people come in, people bring their kids in. I think if that's my daughter, like, how am I going to approach this? Or if my daughter has something, who is the hero that I'm going to bring her to? So that's kind of, for me, it's like when it's all said and done, I just feel like I'm going to be able to help people in a way that I wouldn't, or maybe others can't. So it's almost like unethical if I don't really pursue this with everything I have.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Like, I love that you shared that, and it's video series like this, it's, collaboration like this, of course, with the two of us. I'm so excited to watch all the upcoming and future videos, because we can learn from other providers, we can learn from each other, and it's really just changing healthcare. We can't do it as one, we kind of have to do it as all. So as these video series come out, I would encourage you guys, keep watching these, like, subscribe, like, share and expand. And, like, a lot of doctors have great philosophies, and we all want to help just like our patients, our community, our state, our country, the world. And so we need to be doing things like, like commercials, right, for chiropractic and all natural, right? We need to be fighting against big pharma. We need to be educating people for, like, early intervention, early checks. Like, we need to be, like, banging down the doors for insurance companies. Like, pay more for these types of healthy services for the human race, like, get it access to everybody. And, like, don't just give them good healthcare benefits for surgeries and injections. So thank you so much for inviting me on this video series. I feel so blessed and honored and grateful to be able to share, and it's so great to have such a friendship with you. And so just I really enjoyed being here.
Well, Dr. Wozniak, as a true health hero, like, how can people get in touch with you? Can they follow you on social media, or if they're like down in the Denver area and they say, hey, I need a chiropractor, like, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we are LoHi, LoHi Chiropractic. So if you go to our website, LoHiChiropractic.com, it's got all of our information on there for sure. We're located right in the heart of Denver, so give us a call. Our phone number is on the website. And then for our socials, we are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Lemonade, I mean, you name it. Like, again, delegating to the team, right? Like, our team runs our social platforms. So just look for LoHi Chiropractic. You'll see me on there, and we have Q&A. We answer it on a daily basis. So you can ask anonymous questions, you can make appointments, but we're here, we're ready to serve. We've got a great team here, and no patient is too complicated, not for us, right? Because, we can, either we're gonna help you here, or we're gonna refer you to the right place.